We are back on a Saturday evening again with a Fast&Up Insta Live. We have been looking at many people, athletes, sports people, nutritionists, a diverse set of people. Today we have another very experienced person joining us, a nutritionist at that, Niti Desai, who is an experienced nutritionist based out of Mumbai, extensive experience in multiple and diverse subjects. Today we would be having an interesting conversation around health, immunity, and especially during the COVID times when a lot of these subjects have become much more important for everyone. So we would be expecting Niti Desai, who is based out of Mumbai, to join us anytime now. Just waiting for her. And on Monday, we have Ankit Bhavne, who is India A cricketer, joining us. That's going to be another fantastic discussion. We have always loved having people around, people who have followed Fast&Up, joining us on live Insta sessions. We are expecting Niti Desai to join us for the next half an hour, taking us through subjects of health, wellness, immunity, and so just expecting Niti Desai to join us. Let me see if she's around. It's a Saturday evening, so we are expecting people to log in and see what's happening with their immunity. And so in the last few months, couple of months, I can say from the perspective of Fast&Up, that nutrition as a subject has really increased. People have been more knowledgeable about nutrition in general, and so we see a lot of demand for people who want to understand the concept of nutrition, health, and immunity. And so that's going to be a very good subject in future as well, even after the COVID goes. So I hear that we have some requests for me to talk in Hindi. My Hindi is not that great, but Hindi में बात कर सकता हूँ. तो just wait, just hold on. And I see Mrs. Niti Desai has come in. So let me just see if she's around. Just inviting her to join us. Yes, and so just adding her in Hindi. So waiting for Mrs. Niti Desai to join us on Saturday evening. Hello, Mrs. Niti Desai. How are you?
Yes, all good. Thank you. And how about you?
So good, ma'am. Are you able to hear me well?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. So before I start off, I would like to give a small introduction of Mrs. Niti Desai. She's obviously a very leading nutritionist, experienced at her work for many years now, has had stints into lifestyle nutrition, and she has worked with some of the leading hospitals. She has also worked with Olympic Gold Quest, shaping the nutrition of multiple leading athletes like Mary Kom, Gagan Narang, etc. She currently runs a clinic in Mumbai, and apart from doing many other things in the world of nutrition. So pleasure to have you, Mr. Desai, on our show, which is Fast&Up Insta Live today. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
So while we will be asking questions, also taking questions from the audience, so please feel free to put in your comments on those comment box, and we will have Mrs. Desai answer those questions. But let's get on to the subject of discussion. So in the last couple of months, we already are seeing a lot of thrust on health, immunity, and wellness. So do you also see a perceivable difference in how the people you used to interact with, how they were behaving previously and now?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, as we are perhaps moving towards new normal, a lot of things have changed. And in the last 3 months, in fact, because for the present COVID condition, since we do not have a cure, neither a vaccine, everybody is turning towards, boosting up their own personal ammunition against the disease. and therefore they're moving towards nutrition or supplements or any foods for that matter which can help ramp up their immunity. And there are constant questions from our patients, clients, that what can I do to boost my immunity. So yes, of course it has changed, and in fact the awareness has also gone up further. And with the awareness, there are always more myths, more fake news doing the rounds, especially when we do not have definite answers to many questions. So yeah,
Sure.
a lot of misinformation as well.
Sure. So, talking about myths and misinformation, Mrs. Desai, would you like to tackle at least one or two myths that you have been hearing, misinformation which you want to clarify? Would there be one or two examples which you want to share with the people? I think there is a question from someone. There is a rumor on arsenic as immunity booster. So, something like that. Are there any examples that you would like to share?
Yes, so I think most importantly, there is no magic bullet that people, you are generally leading a unhealthy lifestyle. You're not in your peak of your health, but you want that magic bullet which will ramp up your immunity tomorrow, and you will not be kind of susceptible to the virus. So boosting immunity, building immunity, it takes some time. It's basically a kind of a lifestyle change. So
Sure.
do not look at that you can, during the lockdown period, if you've been guzzling your aerated drinks, or you've been indulging in your baking a lot of desserts and eating them, and then you want to pop in a pill to boost your immunity. That doesn't happen. So that's, I think, one of the biggest kind of myths going around. We have to look at it, building immunity, boosting your immunity. There are a lot of very simple steps that you can take, but you need to
Mhm.
take all of them together. There is no magic bullet.
So let us break it into two parts. One is you also said that you need to eat properly, right? From the normal food that you take.
Yes.
And then we will probably talk a little bit about supplementation. But in terms of normal food that people take in every home, are there any simple rules which can help people build immunity?
Yes. So if I start from the basics, all our soldiers, the body soldiers, the immunity, the alphabets, or the building blocks of our immunity are basically proteins. And unfortunately, the Indian diet is generally low in protein. I mean, that is a most common issue that we as Indians have when it comes to our food habits. And in fact, most of our so-called lifestyle diseases have their origin in having a very little protein in our diet. So we need to ramp up our protein intake. Then only the body can make more soldiers, the
Sure.
immunoglobulin. So
Mm-hmm.
let's start from there. And then there are certain vitamins and minerals which have a particularly important role in immunity, which is basically, we are talking about vitamin C, vitamin A, and vitamin D. In fact, the most reliable research at this point of time is telling us that vitamin D is actually very important in fighting COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and it has shown very good results. And
Mm-hmm.
besides that, the micronutrients, many of them, but especially zinc and selenium,
Sure.
these need to be obtained from our diet,
Mm-hmm.
ideally. And
Mm-hmm.
all of them have different sources from where we can get them. But again, if
Sure.
I put very simple terms, once we make sure that our diet has enough protein, which
Mm-hmm.
in even simpler terms means that every meal should have some protein component. So for the vegetarians, it will have to be pulses and dals primarily.
Right.
And if you're into dairy, of course, then your milk and your yogurt, dahi and paneer. And for non-vegetarians, of course, there are wider options in terms of the eggs and the chicken and the fish, and of course,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
meat.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
Mm-hmm.
you need to make sure that every meal has some component of protein. What happens is, in India, even non-vegetarians, you may be having non-vegetarian food once in a week, but you call yourself non-vegetarian.
Right.
So the protein intakes may still not be sufficient even if you're a non-vegetarian. So you need to make
Mm-hmm.
sure of that.
Mm-hmm.
Vitamin C is obtained from most of the citrus fruits and and the peppers, red and yellow peppers, green peppers. The only component, the important point to be noted is vitamin C is very heat labile and light sensitive. So if you're going to
Mm.
cut your fruits in the morning and put it away and say I'll have it in the evening, it
Mm-hmm.
won't work. Vitamin C will be destroyed.
Sure.
And similarly, when we talk about zinc, zinc is very easily available from non-vegetarian sources in terms of your red meat and even poultry, chicken. But
Mm-hmm.
for vegetarians, the problem is that when you get your zinc from mainly the pulses and the beans and the nuts, there are also some substances called phytates which hamper the absorption of zinc. So that we
Mm-hmm.
need to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Otherwise, then we could supplement it with add some extra zinc by taking a supplement.
Sure. We'll talk about supplementation a little bit later. But I mean, I'm really I didn't know this before because typically protein is associated with a athlete or a sports person. They are the ones who actually take protein. But what you are basically saying is that during such times, a normal person also has to be protein conscious. He needs to build his or her protein intake every day. Uh, is there any thumb rule as to how much protein a normal person should have during these times?
So our Indian guidelines, the recommended dietary allowance is what we call RDAs. The Indian
Mhm.
RDA tells us that we need to have 1 gram of protein per kg body weight. So if you're a 60 kilogram person, you need 60 grams of protein in a day.
Mhm.
So we are not saying you need to go above that, but unfortunately we are not even meeting 1 gram per kg body weight. We are not getting 60 grams for a 60 kg
Mhm.
person. We might be maybe managing around 40 grams, 35 to 40 grams at the best, and we have had
Correct.
enough people where they are not even doing 30 to 35 grams. So as
Mhm.
a thumb rule, what your weight is, of course your, if you're overweight, then that's not the weight, but so
Sure.
your ideal weight
Mhm.
should be, that is the number of grams of protein that you need in a day.
So that's a very valid thumb rule that you have given us. So thank you so much because protein is also essential during COVID times, building your immunity. My next question is related to a little bit of the work from home. I mean, I'm sure you have been interacting with a lot of your own top clients and people who are working in corporates, etc. Last 2 months has been a new phenomena for people working in offices across India. A lot of us have started working from home, which means that we hardly go out. So typically, what have you seen with people? And is there a way where you can eat more sensibly while at home and yet keep your immunity alive?
So I have had interestingly two sets of kind of clients. Some people have taken this as an opportunity, as people have been talking that turn this adversity into an opportunity. So they have kind of taken this as an opportunity, and they are kind of spending more time exercising even at home. They are watching their diet. Obviously the socializing has been kind of compulsorily cut off, so a lot
Mhm.
of excess calories, alcohol has been kind of reduced from the previous uh, the way we used to socialize earlier. So
Yeah.
that has happened. While I also have another set of clients who have put on a lot of weight
Mm.
because they have been a lot of people have been baking a lot of people have been not in a very happy mood, so they've been turning towards food as a into comfort eating. So
Mhm.
yes, in fact, a lot of kids. Today only I had somebody on online consultation. So the girl was used to play football very regularly, and now
Mhm.
obviously that has stopped, and she's put on around 6 kilos in these 2.5 months. So childhood obesity is another issue because kids are also spending a lot of time on the cell phone, on the PlayStation, and social media. So the activity level has gone down even further for kids
Mhm.
because
Mhm. Mhm.
they would like to go outdoors. They may not be very open to doing online classes when it comes to physical activity. So yes, it's a mixed bag.
So, as a thumb rule, do you suggest reducing the consumption of your calorie-rich food during this time for people who are probably increasing weight? Is that a normal approach that one should follow, or what would be your suggestion?
No, absolutely, because overall our physical activity, of course, has gone down. We are not going out. We are not traveling. Uh, so our physical activity level has, of course, gone down. Unless, as I said, if you're making a conscious effort and doing
Correct.
of online classes on or you're exercising by yourself. So your caloric output is much less now, so your caloric intake obviously will have to be less. You will have to watch your calories for sure and do a downward revision to your caloric intake.
Sure. That's a nice input to have, ma'am. There's a question from Amit B. So he's asking, what if uric acid is high? Any protein diet would you still suggest? So is there anything that you would want to comment on that?
So I think this is also one of the most common myths actually, which is kind of going around. We see a lot of uric acid hyperuricemia in the population, and that is in fact one of the manifestations of what we call the metabolic syndrome or the lifestyle diseases. So somebody who is overweight or obese, has diabetes, has blood pressure, has high cholesterol levels, will also may have high uric acid levels. So the solution to this is actually losing weight, being more active, drinking enough fluids. The solution here is not stopping protein intake, which everybody does.
Right.
They say, oh, high uric acid levels, so I must stop having protein. And now that very little protein, which was also there in our Indian diet, which was anyways, is also now not there, is absent.
Correct.
People put on more weight because once you cut down the protein, there it is replaced by generally by carbs and of course fat. So you'll put on more weight and your uric acid levels will not go down. So definitely need to have, especially for vegetarians, vegetarian protein does not affect uric acid as much. Dairy protein has no relation with uric acid. If at all, the non-vegetarian protein and especially the red meat and the organ meats we have, which has a implication on uric acid levels. But for vegetarians, they should not cut down their protein intake at all.
Very, very interesting insights, Mrs. Desai. So there's another interesting subject, which is a matter of a lot of debate, but there's Monal Mogre Kulkarni who is asking, as we are at home, there is less activity. So can we do or experiment with intermittent fasting?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Monal. So basically, intermittent fasting is the flavor of the season. So as I often say in my talks, diets come and go. So at the moment, IF is the flavor of the season. Scientifically, when you look out for hardcore evidence, intermittent fasting is not a weight loss strategy. You may lose some weight, but the weight will come back on. And I have had enough people who have not lost weight but have had either issues with stuff like hair fall, acidity, because there are very long interval gaps. So obviously, the acidity can go up. I've had people who've had high potassium levels suddenly, very healthy, normal individuals, because they were trying to fill their gaps in with cups of green tea and a lot of nimbu pani. I've had a couple of young students who have had hair fall because the fruits and the nuts which used to be had in between the meals have been eliminated. But IF, there is some evidence which shows that IF may be a good strategy for kind of to increase longevity, to kind of to detoxify yourself. But IF as a weight loss strategy, we do not have enough evidence.
So there is one question. So I would like to club that with the subject of supplements. So you talked about proteins quite a bit, 60 grams for a 60 kg person, and also Indians being vegetarian, predominantly their intake of proteins is going to be low. So Mehak is asking, do you recommend protein supplements to supplement your protein intake?
If you are able to meet your requirements through your diet, that would be our first choice. But that involves number one, planning. Number two, perhaps visit to a dietitian who can give you the relevant protein, identify the sources and how to include them in your kind of diet plan. Number three, cooking skills. Number four, time to do that. So if you're able to meet your requirements through your diet, ideal, perfect. But for different reasons, if you are not able to meet the requirements, then you could you could get your protein through supplements. Having
Okay.
said that, keep this thumb rule in mind. It is for normal, healthy population. We are not talking about people who are exercising very regularly or elite athletes. It's a different issue. But for normal,
Sure.
healthy individuals, keep a ballpark figure of the protein content needs to be equivalent to your weight, ideal weight. So
Perfect.
if 100 kilos, no, it's not going to be 100. If your ideal weight would be 70 kilos, then that's what we are looking at.
Thank you so much. Before we jump on to the next question, I just want to address one person who just messaged saying that there's a customer feedback that he needs. Jayant Dash, we will get back to you. I'll inform my team to get back to you. So we'll continue with the discussion. So, ma'am, also the concept of supplements that you had suggested on the protein side. What is your view on other supplements like multivitamins, vitamins, minerals, etc., which is available in plenty? So, is that something which you would advise people to start taking or look at the possibility of having?
Yes, so while I did talk about zinc and vitamin C, I would just like to, I did mention vitamin D, which in fact has one of the strongest evidence for COVID. So we all know that vitamin D is a sunshine vitamin, but the sunshine generally doesn't work in the urban cities. This is a good time. I don't know how long it's going to last. We are just into unlocking, and we are in first 1.0. So the pollution levels are still very low. The air is kind of clear. So if you expose yourself and sit in the sunlight for 15 to 20 minutes between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. With any body part, your arm or your legs exposed, you will be able to get your vitamin D, because there are not too many vitamin D sources, food sources. For non-vegetarians, they can still get from fish. Okay. The vegetarians have a serious lack of sources. I mean, mushrooms are a good source. And then if your milk is fortified with vitamin D, eggs. But otherwise, and we all have seen that across the table, most Indians are vitamin D deficient. So a supplementation may have to be looked into. And as I said just now, especially as our kind of war against COVID, vitamin D is our friend. We need to make sure that our vitamin D levels are optimum. And similarly, vitamin C, zinc, we don't want to, even if you do a good multivitamin, multimineral supplement, which has all the C, zinc, E,
Right.
selenium, D, I think you will be doing yourself a good favor. You'll be making sure that your levels are at optimum.
That's a very interesting insight, Mr. Desai. So you mentioned about 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. For getting the optimum sunlight. Is that a particular reason? Because a lot of people go out for walks, runs, etc., either in the early morning or they would probably do it in the evening. So is 11 to 2 the best time?
Generally, that is considered the best time because it's on the the UVB days. So this is considered the best time. But if it is see, this was especially possible during lockdown because we were all at home. So we could sit near the window or in our balcony and do this. And that's what we had suggested during the lockdown period. Now, once we've started moving out, then of course, as I said, till the pollution levels are low, we can derive the benefit. Once we are back to where we are, especially the big cities and Delhi, no sunlight is going to work because so that's the issue. And then the supplementation or getting D from diet becomes our only source. And as I said, dietary sources of vitamin D are not so easily available. So then the supplementation is important.
I think there's one last question I would take on the protein side. Mehak is still asking whether protein intake at night is a good thing to have. Maybe she's also exercising. She's also a fitness enthusiast. So that's the reason why she's asking. Is it okay to have protein-heavy protein supplements in the night before sleep?
If you are talking about dietary protein, that protein is coming from your food, as having a protein-rich meal as dinner, there is no problem. There's no issue there. In fact, if your diet has less of the carbohydrates in the last meal, it will only help you, especially if you're looking at losing weight, or if you're looking at even building more of muscle mass, reducing your percentage body fat, it will work. Protein supplement taking at night, again, I don't know what your physical activity level is, Mehak, but a lot of times we suggest a slow release protein supplement like a casein based supplement at night for the repair and the rejuvenation of the body, which exercising is basically muscle wear and tear. So yes, protein supplementation at night can be useful, not a blanket rule, but for some people, yes, that would be useful.
Thank you so much. So Mona is asking, she's allowed to know about hydration and the water intake, etc. during immunity. Is there a role that hydration and water intake plays during immunity?
Yes, in fact, what we all know that our bodies are basically 75 to 80% water. So unless we are well hydrated, unless we've had enough water, none of our systems, none of the biochemical reactions in our body will work properly. So hydrating yourself, drinking enough water, extremely, extremely important. Very often, people, if they're during this again lockdown period when it was quite hot, people were sitting just in the AC rooms, and you won't feel thirsty because now you're not even active. But you will have to make sure that you make a conscious effort to drink around 1.5 to 2.5 liters of water, depending on your weight, to make sure that you're meeting your water requirements. Very, very important to drink enough water. In fact, even if you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to be fit, make sure that you drink enough water.
Thank you so much for that reply. So one question that comes up is, now that the unlock is happening, people are going to go out more, right? So they have a mask, they have a sanitizer in hand. Is there something that they should be doing while going out? Because they probably will be spending some time outside. So is there from a eating dietary perspective, is there something that they can do while they are out?
Yes. So in fact, with the unlocking, the lockdown itself was a kind of a shield for us against COVID, but that shield has been removed now. So we will now, that was it was compulsory, it protected us. Now that shield has been removed. So we as individuals will have to personally take care and have our own personal shields. So besides social distancing, masking, and sanitizing, the fourth component here is boosting your immunity, because that is a shield. And if you make sure that your diet is balanced, it has sufficient protein, you are including a variety of fruits and vegetables, dark colored, deep colored vegetables. The more the color, the better. It doesn't have to be only greens. It could be the reds and the yellows and the purples. Then you're making sure that you're getting a complement of all the vitamins, minerals, the antioxidants, include some nuts, some seeds, So balance that, and if for whatever reason you are not able to do it because you don't have help in the house, you are now fed up, you're tired, then
Mm,
supplementation may at least cover you.
mhm,
So of course, diet is your next shield. Once the lockdown
mm.
removed, that is your personal shield, which you will have to definitely ramp up.
Perfect. Now, Mrs. Desai, I would want to just also talk a little bit about athletes, elite athletes, because you have really worked with some of the elite athletes, Mary Com, for example. Uh, what are they doing now? I mean, how are you telling them to be in top shape? Uh, what are they doing, and what should athletes in general follow? Because there
So
is no competition happening.
no, absolutely. So, in fact, a lot of them take this as kind of a time for the family, compulsorily time for the family, where they can spend some quality time, and they're not always in the camps, training for
Yeah.
hours. Hours. But at the same time, they make sure that they are not losing a lot of their muscle mass, which they've built over with
Mm,
painstakingly with a lot of effort. Uh, so there's some amount of physical activity always going on. I
mm,
think one important point which needs to be made is that uh, moderate physical activity is a great immunity booster.
mhm,
Immunity booster, but elite athletes, the level at which they exercise, that is
mm,
not an immunity booster. In fact, that can hamper the immunity. That can bring down the immunity because they are working
yeah,
very high intensity for very long time. So, in
mm,
fact, they need to protect themselves even more
mm, mm,
with the immunity boosters in terms of course, the diet, in terms of getting the all the components, the proteins, the vitamins, minerals, getting sufficient sleep. Even for all of us, sleep is a great immunity booster. Not getting
sure.
stressed, very, very important. So
Mm,
we need to put all these uh, put pieces in place to boost our
mhm.
immunity. As I started in the beginning, there is no magic bullet.
Correct.
Sufficient sleep, not getting stressed, looking
Yeah.
after your diet, and then you ramp up your immunity.
Very, very interesting insights to this. So I would just take one more question before we wind up. I mean, it's been one of the most informative sessions we have had. So thank you so much for that. Being on the muscle side, you were talking about muscles. So there's one question from Ranajit Roy who's asking, uh, what is the best food intake for lean muscles and what foods to avoid? I think it's a generic question, but maybe if you can just throw some light on that.
As I said, basically you need to make sure that your protein intake is sufficient. And as I
Mm-hmm.
explained to you, the Indian diet is basically extremely rich in carbs. It's a carb heavy. We are a carb heavy nation.
Thanks. Mm-hmm.
So if you need to look at your carbs and reduce your carb intake, especially your refined carbs in terms of rice and poha and suji and biscuits and bakery products. So if you replace some of your carbs with good quality protein, you will
Mm-hmm.
definitely build up more muscle mass and strip yourself of the fat, body fat. Of course,
Thank you so much.
this is keeping in mind that the fat intake, but most of the people do know where the fat is coming from and that is taken care of. The issue is the carbs and the protein interplay.
Thank you so much. Last question from my side before we wind up really is that you are very experienced in terms of being a nutritionist, has looked at multiple perspectives, things. You have worked with elite athletes, corporates, normal people, etc. What is your sense like? Are people in India taking care of their immunity and health, or they have a long way to go?
I think the intention is there,
Mm-hmm.
uh, is very much there, and everybody wishes that they could just pop in a pill and lose weight, boost their immunity. But unfortunately, there are no short ways to success. So
Mm-hmm.
the awareness is increasing manyfold, and people are
Mm-hmm.
looking at eating healthy, people are looking at ramping the immunity. This condition has, in fact, circumstances has pushed everybody to kind of look at many other things in life. Health has come to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
uh, Also because as we know, the comorbidities, if you are overweight, if you are diabetic,
Yeah.
are prone to this. So I think this is a very good opportunity for all of us to look at our health and start eating healthfully.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Niti Desai. It's been absolute pleasure having you. Very, very informative. I think there would be so many more questions coming to you if we continue this program. But thank you for taking time off on a Saturday evening. And I hope that we have a healthier and better country once we are getting through this COVID phase. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thanks for having
Thank you
me.
so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.